the fact that if you were to try to analyze what we have learned so far, you could kind of boil it down and you could say, okay, he has told us the most important thing in the world is wisdom. Then he has told us how to get wisdom, where we can find wisdom. By the way, where can you find wisdom? Where does he tell us that you look? Where do you get wisdom? Suppose that you start out and say, okay, I'm going to get wisdom. Where do you say you get it? You remember? Well, the first thing is, listen to somebody. Who is it? Hey, listen to your fathers. See? Listen to your parents. That is the beginning of wisdom. Listen to them. Then secondly, do you remember where he said you can find it, you can see it? As you go out on the streets, when you come to the street corners, when you get into the marketplaces. In other words, it is everywhere around us that we can look and we can find wisdom. We ought always to look at things in life, not as just experiences and say, well, okay, that was interesting, that was fun, or that was bad, hope I don't ever have to go through that again, and just kind of shrug things off. But we need to look at it and say, what can I learn from that? What kind of wisdom can I glean from this experience that I've had? So he tells us that. Then there's another way that we get wisdom, which is not pleasant. It's the most unpleasant thing you have ever experienced. Remember what it is? The chastening of the Lord. When the Lord chastens you, when the Lord sees that you have a certain weakness that needs to be corrected, and so he chastens you, then take that chastening, accept that chastening, and see what can I learn from it. Now then, we'll get down here to verse 10, and he says, "Hear, O my son, and receive my sayings." Now again, keep in mind, this is wisdom talking. It's not a man, it's not Solomon, but it's wisdom personification. It's as though you take wisdom, make a person out of him or her, and said, "Hear, O my son, and receive my sayings." So listen to wisdom. "And the years of thy life shall be many." Has he told us this before, that this is one of the blessings of having wisdom, that it will extend your life? It will help keep you out of things that take your life early. So now, your life will be many. I have taught thee in the way of wisdom. I have led thee in paths of uprightness. So now, when wisdom teaches us, there's always this thing that goes with it, that wisdom will teach us and will lead us in path of uprightness. That is, of doing that which is right. Anytime that you get yourself involved in something that's not right and proper, why, don't blame it on wisdom. Don't say, well, I did this because I was so wise. You did it because you were foolish, because you didn't listen to wisdom. So anytime that we walk in the steps of wisdom, we're always going to be walking down a path that is doing that which is right. "And when thou goest, thy steps shall be straightened, or shall not be straightened, and if thou runnest, thou shalt not stumble." Now, what does the word straightened mean here? In English, this can kind of throw us just a little bit, because first thing we think about when we talk about straighten is a straight path from here to here. In fact, I know I don't use the word in the way it's used in the Bible. I don't think I ever have. And I don't think I've ever heard anybody else use it, just in normal conversations. And as you were doing a job, you say, boy, that job was a straightened job, wasn't it? Man, I hope. And so you start talking about this. The word straighten here means difficult. It means that which is hard. The best illustration of it is not going from point A to point B in a straight line, but it's like having a straight jacket put on you. See, there's the way we use it. In fact, that's about the only way I know in the English language that we use this word, that at least comes to my mind, is a straitjacket. And so you say, what is a straitjacket? Well, it's a jacket they put on you, and it crosses your arms and buckles in the back, and it gives you trouble. It keeps you from getting out. It gives you difficulties. It binds you up. You don't know what to do. You can't function. That's what straight means. So now here, when you're walking, your paths are not going to be difficult. You're not going to be running into these situations that you cannot get out of. There's always a way that you can look at it and say, okay, here's what I should do. So when you look at something and you analyze it and you say, if I do this, if I do this, I'll get in more trouble. But what do I do? Well, what does wisdom tell you to do? The overall thing in wisdom. Whenever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, what do you always do? You do that which is right. And so you ask yourself, what is the right thing to do? And you say, but man, if I do the right thing and tell the truth, it'll get me in more trouble. Yeah, that happens many, many times. But if you don't take that path, and you don't do what is right, and you don't tell the truth, what's going to happen to you? You might get away with it for a week or two, but somewhere down the line you're going to be caught up with, and then it's really going to be tough. And so it's always best. Always, according to wisdom, always do that which is right. And then he says, and if you run, you'll not stumble. Well, what's the difference in running and walking? It's just that simple. It's just talking about your life. It's saying exactly the same thing. It's saying if you're living your life in a normal way and you do it according to wisdom, everything will be fine. If you are running through life really fast, if there are things that come into your life and it's just absolutely overwhelming you, why, you'll not stumble. Just whatever comes into your life, whether it's in normal life or whether it's in a more difficult section of life, always do what is right. So 13, take fast hold of instruction and let her not go. Keep her, for she is thy life. So here again, saying exactly the same thing that I've just got through saying, take fast hold of instruction. Let her not go. So whatever you're doing in life, wherever you are, whatever trouble you might be in, do that which is right. Take fast hold of instruction. This is kind of graphic to me, that if a person is falling out of a tree, or let's say that there's a child that gets up there on that light, and the child is falling and he grabs a hold of that edge, what would you tell the child to do? So you look up there and there's a 4-year-old. There's Gus in 4 years. And so he's hanging from that light. So you're here. What would you say to the child? Would you step back and say, now kid, how did you get up there? Let's talk about this. No, that's not what you do. You tell him, hold fast, wouldn't you? Right? And what do you do if the kid says, oh, I'm getting so tired, I can't hold on? What do you tell the kid to do? Hold fast. That's what he's saying. So here's what we're to do as we go through life. We're to do the same thing that we should do if we fell out of the top of a tree and just barely holding on to a limb. Hold fast. Hold fast to always doing that which is right. And it says, keep her, for she is thy life. That's what you have to do in order to preserve your life. And if you live according to wisdom, you will be able to preserve it then in that way. Now in verse 14 and 15, he gives us a bit of instruction that he's mentioned before, but it's something that will come to pass over and over and over again. He said, enter not thou into the path of the wicked, and walk not in the way of evil men. Avoid it, pass not by it, turn from it, and pass on. Now, a whole lot of instructions that are in here. But again, they're very, very important. The first psalm, the whole thing, is just about this same thing here. In about 8 verses, David deals with this in that way. And here it is in a couple of verses. So, enter not into the path of the wicked. So, don't enter into the way a wicked person lives. If somebody is wicked, they're not righteous, and they invite you to go along in their way of life, don't do it. Don't ever enter in to that. Now, if you enter into it, it's going to be harder and harder to get out of as you go on down through life. So just make sure that you don't ever enter in to a path or a lifestyle that is a lifestyle of wickedness. Well, what do? He said, avoid it. That's how you keep away from a wicked lifestyle. Avoid it. Pass not by it. So just keep away. If somebody offers you something, let's suppose they offer you a business deal, and it really is a great business deal, and you could become a rich person. But there's some shady stuff in there. There's some tax evasion, or there's something that is wrong. And so you look at it, and here's some quick riches. Well, how do you deal with that? Do you go home? Do you say, well, let me think about it overnight? No, that's what wisdom is saying. Don't even think about it overnight. He said, avoid it. Just look at the person and say, no. No. But let me tell you, no. No, just no. That is avoiding it. And then he says, pass not by it. This has a little different connotation. Don't even get close to it. Now, passing not by it in something like this would be, let's suppose that somebody offers me a business deal, but I'll have to be on shady grounds when it comes to paying taxes, because that's how we're going to make our money. Avoid it. Say no. What does it mean, pass not by it? It means don't even get close to it. Don't go back the next day. You know, let me talk to you a little bit more about this deal that you offered me. Let's discuss this just a little bit more. Don't even get close to it. Avoid it. Keep away from it. Walk around it. Don't pass close by it. This is get you, don't they? Don't even pass by it. Don't even get close to it. Now, we've already used the word that the New Testament uses. What is the New Testament? It uses it in 2 ways. It tells you what to do with idolatry and what to do with fornication. What is the total teaching of the New Testament, the total teaching of Jesus? How do you keep from getting involved in idolatry and fornication? What's the word? Flee. Just that simple. F-L-E-E. Sum total. That's it. One time Paul said, flee idolatry. Another time he said, flee fornication. Now, when you flee, what's the difference in fleeing and walking? See? All right? Don't get close to it. Avoid it. And if you ever find where you are close to it, what are you supposed to do? Flee, run, see? Get away from it. This is wisdom that's telling us how to live so we'll have a good life. He said, turn from it, pass on. Get on down with life and turn away from it. For they sleep not except they do evil, and their sleep is taken away unless they cause some to fall. Because here are people that are out there and they just designed to do evil. They constantly are thinking about it. They can't sleep unless they've got an evil scheme up their sleeve. And that's just their lifestyle that they have. For they eat the bread of the wickedness and drink the wine of violence. So there are people who do this. That's how they live. They live in a wicked way. They do wicked business deals. They do wickedness with their family. They just wicked. And they will even cause violence to come. It's anything that helps me in here. For they eat the bread of wickedness in here. And they drink the wine of violence. That's their lifestyle. That's what they eat and drink. As you say, well, somebody just eats and drinks a certain thing, their job or science or schooling. That's how they subside. There are people out there like that. So make sure that you don't get caught up with those kind of people. He said, but the path of the righteous is as the dawning light. So now, the path of the righteousness is as the dawning light. This is totally different now. When you get up and you see the sun shining, the light coming, how do you feel when you see the sun come over the mountain and all of a sudden, ping, it floods us with sunlight? Stop to think. Every time you see that happen, how do you feel? See, it's just a great feeling. Just, oh, look at that. It's a wonderful feeling. Okay, that's what he's saying now about this situation here of doing that which is right in here. The path of righteousness will give you that kind of a day. It will give you that kind of a life. It'll give you a pleasant life here. And it shineth more and more unto the perfect day. It'll just keep getting brighter and brighter and brighter, and your life will get better and better and better if you live according to this way. The wicked is as darkness, they know not at what they stumble. Two paths to take. The way of the righteous, which is pleasant, it's great, it's good, it's like the shining of light in a new day. The light or the path of a wickedness is like walking in darkness all the time. It might look like a good light, a good life, but it's surely not. Okay, he goes on and he says here then, well, they know not what they stumble. People get in wickedness situations. They don't even know how they got there. They don't know how to get out. Up totally in it. All right, verse 20. My son, now again, he's going to give us some more of these regulations. My son, attend to my words. That's the words of wisdom. Incline thine ear unto my saying. Let them not depart from thine eyes. Keep them in the midst of thy heart, for they are life unto those that find them. Now, over and over and over again, notice that God is telling us something. Now, if God tells us one time, it's important. If he tells us twice, it's important. If he tells us 3, 4, 5, 6 times, it ought to get our attention and say, you know, this must be really important, because God keeps reminding me of this. God keeps telling me of this. Well, what is it that he's telling here for, I don't know how many times now he said it just here in this book, but incline thine ear unto my sayings, and let them not depart from thine eyes. That is, always look toward wisdom. Incline your ear to the sayings of wisdom, and don't let them depart from you. Don't get off in the wrong way and go down the wrong path. 22, for they are life unto those that find them. So here he tells us again. How many times has he told us that wisdom will give you good life, long life? And here it is, he said, wisdom is life, see, if you do this. So over and over and over again, God is telling us this. What should that mean? If I analyze my life, and all of a sudden I say, you know, I'm not a happy man. I'm involved in things I shouldn't be involved in. I really don't know what to do with my life. And I find that I'm all mixed up here in life. What should come to my mind? What is the answer? What happened? Well, I'm not living and haven't lived according to wisdom. Somewhere along the line, I made the wrong turn. And if I want to have life on this earth, I'm going to have to turn, and I'm going to have to go back to what this is. So now, 21. He said, "Let them not depart from me, but keep them in the midst of thy heart, for they are life unto them." Now, right here we have the word heart that is used. I want to talk about that just a little bit. In the Bible, the word heart is synonymous with mind, with your mind. If you have something in your heart, or you think with your heart, the word heart and mind are synonymous. So now then, as he's turning here to heart, he's not talking about this heart that you have here. He's talking about the heart that you have up here. He's talking about your mind. So now, let's look at what he says about the mind. In fact, let me ask you a question to start with. If you're to take the Bible, read all of God's Word, read Proverbs over and over and over again, what is the most important part of you? See, what's the one thing that you should watch out for more than any other thing? Is it your cholesterol? Is it your heart? Is it your blood pressure? Is it breast cancer? Is it, and you go on down the line. The one thing that stands out in the Bible over and over and over again is the heart. It's the mind. Now, we've already learned something about the mind. Let's flip back in, where is it here? It's in chapter 3, and verse 5. He said, "Trust in Jehovah with all thy heart." So make sure that you, in your mind, you trust in Jehovah with all your heart, all your mind. It's kind of like loving God. How much? "Thou shalt love the Lord thy God," see, "with all thy mind." And so trust in Him with all that. Don't trust in yourself, but trust in Him. Now then, notice what he said here. He said that in verse 22, 20, 21, "Keep them in the midst of thy heart." So take the words of wisdom that God has given us and keep them in the midst of thy heart. Put them in your mind. Put them in your mind. Philippians 4, the first 8 verses there. "If there be any of this, if 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 there be any of this, think on these things." In other words, Paul is telling us the things to meditate on, the things to think about. They're all the righteous things of God. That's what he's saying right here. Now, in verse 23, he said, keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Now, there is a big verse. There's a verse that really says the same thing as we'll find in the 23rd proverb, where he tells us there that as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Now, here he says, keep thy heart with all diligence. Now, how are we to keep our heart? Is it differently than our cholesterol? Yeah, maybe we should watch our cholesterol. But how much? In other words, if I told you, you know the most important thing in my life, I went to the doctor and I found out I have high cholesterol, and the most important thing in my life is to watch my cholesterol. Would that sound funny to you? See? You say, yeah, you've got it out of proportion here. But now then, here's what he says, keep thy heart with all diligence. Keep your mind. Make sure your mind is right. Make sure your mind is filled with the wisdom of God, with his words. And you give all diligence, all your effort. Everything is designed to go that way. Do that. Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Now, the issues of life is something that we don't say again. But what are issues of life? Well, they're the things you do in your life. They're the things that you do. Now, you go out and you do something, and somebody says, why'd they do that? Well, I can tell you why they did it. Because they thought about it. Right? Because it's in their mind. You find somebody that does something that, that guy, you know, that jumps off of things and he flies and goes around and flies like this and comes around with just those things out there on the wings in there. The other day he was up, 20 minutes or something like that. Just flying around like that. And I look at that guy and I think, man, that never came to my mind. I mean, now why did he do that? Why did he do that and I didn't do it? Well, out of your heart comes the issues of life. He was thinking about it. He's interested in that. He's trying various things. That's the way that his heart is inclined. Never entered my mind. That's there. Out of it are the issues of life. Now, this is true with every one of us. I could go down the line and I could say, okay, why is Dave Bray a realtor? Right? Why is he a realtor and somebody else is something else? What's out of your heart is the issues of life. That's the way they've thought. That's the way they've analyzed. That's what they have decided. He didn't become a realtor by accident. Mitch didn't become an engineer just by accident. One day these guys just woke up and they said, well, isn't that something? Dave said, I'm a broker. I guess I better go find an office somewhere. Didn't happen that way. Mitch didn't just wake up and say, boy, you know, I never gave this any thought, but I'm an engineer. Maybe I better give Boeing a call. No. What this is saying is, out of your heart are the issues of life. That's the way you think. We all think. We all have strange thoughts. We all think differently. I was thinking this morning, how could I demonstrate this? And all of a sudden it hit me that I have something I've been wanting to show you for a long time, so I'm going to show you this morning. Now, nobody in here has ever seen this. Anybody in here ever seen anything like this in all your life? Have you ever? All it is just strings and thread. Nobody in here has ever seen anything like this. You say, well, where did you get that? Why do you have that? Well, they haven't made this for 50, 75 years. But this is meaningful to me. I've got some. I've kept it. It's out in my shed. Well, why? Well, out of my heart comes the issues of life. You say, what do you mean? Well, back when I was a boy in the Depression, we got our hands dirty. My dad worked in the oil field, and it was always dirty. What do you suppose he wiped his hands with? And he didn't go to town and buy any of these cloth towels. We didn't have the money, and they didn't have the towels. Well, you say, well, maybe he just took old clothes. No, you didn't spend your old clothes that way. You patched up your clothes when they got holes in them, and you kept patching, and you didn't go out and wipe grease with old clothes. And once they got so they couldn't patch anymore, Mom had set them aside so she could cut out little patches to patch some other clothes. You didn't just take clothes, is what I'm saying. Today I have a bunch of old T-shirts out in my shop. You didn't do that. You didn't waste them. Okay, so what did you do back in those days? You didn't use your gunny sacks. We all bought cow food and pig food and so forth. But they'd make them with flowers on them, and so then the women would take them and make dresses out of them. What do you suppose men wiped their hands on? This, during the Depression. This is called waste. It's a waste of something. I don't know what it is, just threads. That's all it is. And so my dad wanted to wipe his hands. He'd go out and he'd grab some of these things and pull them apart and then wipe his hands. He'd pull this. I went out in the sack this morning, just pull this out, and you break it apart. It's waste. Now, I'm thinking about this. I'm the one that's showing this. Why is it that I'm doing this and nobody else is? Because out of your heart, I've lived this kind of life back in the Depression. And so I have a sack of it. I can just imagine, if the kids found this after I die, they'll laugh and say, hey, come here, look what Dad's got over here. And they don't realize it's valuable. What would museums give for this? What could you do for this? In fact, I'm going to give this to Scott. I'm going to leave it up here. And if he has an ounce of sense, he'll take it and he'll give it to Gus. And some of these days, Gus could become a rich man with waste. Well, why? Out of your heart comes the issues of life. It just so happened that's something that's come out of my heart. Now, the same thing is true with every other thing. The reason I do anything in this life is because it starts in my heart. Whether it's foolish, whether it's something good, whatever it is, it all starts within my heart. So then he goes ahead and he talks about this and tells about it in there. Put away your perverse lips and make your feet level and do that which is right. Don't turn to the right. Don't turn to the left. Don't even shift your eyes and look on the other way. Remove your foot, but you stay there and do that which is right. Okay, there's where we close today.